place is a mess.
And there's nothing.
Boris? God, ew.
Hey, stay out of my cake.
What has he been reading?
Sex and the Chef.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Bob. Well, I write for the Canadian Star, and I'm doing a series of articles on how people feel about today's problems.
I ain't sorry I hurt him. He got what was coming to him. I'm only sorry I had to go to prison.
Hey, Bob.
You!
What time are you picking up Jess tonight?
I don't really know, John. I haven't been able to get in touch with her.
Maybe she took her phone off the hook. Enjoy a nice quiet day. Of course, maybe she's having lunch with Nick. Took her phone off the hook to enjoy her date without interruptions.
Help! Help me! I'm in here! Help!
Hi, I'm Barbara Crampton from Chopping Mall, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. We're now up to episode 231. And in our long-running series of films that the Academy overlooked, we are covering 1985's The Deadly Intruder. So, this is going to be an interesting one. This is, it was yours, wasn't it, Joseph?
Shockingly, it wasn't Nathan.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Well, it remains to be seen. I mean, who knows? It is a film that I reviewed on Hysteria Lives and gave it 1 star out of 5. But we'll see whether my views have mellowed on The Deadly Intruder. But anyway, how are we doing this fine morning? Is it top of the morning for you, Erik?
It's very top of the morning. It's super sunny over here. And I just had a Twix. So what's not to like?
Ah, you were eating naked bars, weren't you?
Yeah, I haven't actually had a Twix. I had one of those naked bars.
Next time I'm back in the UK, whenever that might be, I shall try and get hold of
2037.
Very possibly, yeah. The rate they're rolling out the vaccine here in Spain is...
it's the same here in Ireland.
But Nathan, Joseph, how are you doing over in sunny Georgia and Tennessee?
Hey, Erik, is it true that, Justin, you'll know this. Is it true that the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain?
No, not that I'm aware of. I don't think we have planes here. I think it's probably planes in...
How do you fly in then?
I kind of, that's probably the kind of level of the joke as we heard in The Deadly Intruder. There are a few kind of jokes in there, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Erik can top himself.
Hey, how rude.
Well, no, I didn't mean, sticking something at your bottom. I meant throwing yourself out the window like you.
I thought you meant, yeah, that's what I thought you meant, throwing myself out the window. I wasn't even thinking about sticking anything at my bottom.
Oh, we're off to a fine start. Having said that, this film probably does lend itself to some bottom talk. So, Joseph, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. So, well, before we get on to the Deadly Intruder, let's have a little chat about what we've been watching recently. So, let's start with Nathan. What have you caught up with this last couple of weeks?
I caught up with the new Wrong Turn, the Wrong Turn remake that just came out. It's an interesting change of pace, I guess I should say, because, I'd heard that it's different from the original, but I didn't know exactly how different this movie was going to go. I love the first half, and the second half, I enjoyed for entertainment value, but it gets pretty silly and very ridiculous, and I don't know. It goes in places where I'm like, I understand the need to subvert the audience's expectations, but sometimes you subvert them so much that it's like, am I really watching what I'm watching right now? Okay. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to say I recommend it, but I did find it very entertaining. So, I guess that's, a recommendation in and of itself.
Okay. Has anyone else seen it? Joseph, have you seen it yet?
No. One of the forum members, I believe it was Farmer Vincent, had talked about it, and he said that, the first half is pretty good, but then it becomes really kind of torture porny and kind of shrill. So I'm not in a rush to see it.
What about you, Erik?
No, I wouldn't be in a rush to see it either. I liked the original Wrong Turn back in the day, but yeah.
I saw it as well, Nathan, and I would concur, I think, with you, although I don't think it really necessarily goes into that torture porn thing as much as, say, like a Hostel or something like that. I wouldn't say it's torture porny, would you, Nathan?
Not really. I mean, because I don't think it lingers on anyone's suffering, really. It's, like Saw or something will linger on the pain they're going through. But I don't feel like this one really does that.
Well, I think he meant more along the lines of it kind of bypasses the slasher shenanigans and kind of ties people to chairs and they get preached at by, holier than thou, inflictors of pain. So it just doesn't sound like my cup of tea.
No, well, I kind of guess that's more kind of akin to what it does. I mean, not going to spoil anything, but it does kind of start off with kind of people go to the woods and get hunted down, or it certainly appears that way. But it felt to me that it was like somebody had seen Midsummer and then thought, why don't we make a Wrong Turn remake that goes off in that kind of territory? It is very, when you find out what the central conceit is, it is pretty silly, considering that no one really, the whole thing, the whole basis of the movie was able to happen without anyone knowing about it. But, that was all pretty silly. I mean, the other thing I'd say, without spoiling it, because it isn't really a spoiler, is that it scores some points for having a kind of couple of gay characters in it.
Yes.
But they do pretty much nothing, do they? Apart from, I mean, in horror movies,
that's because they're too busy listening to Kylie Minogue and ABBA.
But they don't, in a horror movie, you've got to have your cannon fodder. But just having the idea of having two gay characters in it, and then doing precisely nothing with them, really, apart from being cannon fodder, is a bit disappointing, really. It's kind of a shame. You'd think, in this day and age, because the whole idea of the kind of final girl, I'm not saying whether this happens in this movie, but the final girl going from Mika Mile to sort of uber killer, kind of revenge, kind of, sort of destroyer thing is a bit overdone now. I'm not saying it shouldn't have happened, but it's just always in these films, it's always the case now that and so it would be nice to maybe, have a gay character actually become the final gay. How about that?
The final gay. I like that.
Make him a bear. That would make it even better.
Well, Bear in the Woods.
Yeah.
So I think the woods are going to come up quite a lot in this episode. So anything else, Nathan?
I also watched one from 1998 called Writer's Block.
Okay.
It's it's definitely one of those like, homegrown, kind of movies. Like it definitely didn't have a big budget or anything like that. But one thing that I did really enjoy about it is that it is such a staple of the time. Like they play like, the music from the 90s and, the fashion from the 90s, and they talk a lot about Scream and Scream 2 and all that. And I absolutely love when the killer is revealed at the end, like his monologue just goes on and on and on and on. It's so long, but it's entertaining, I'd say, for what it is. Now, one problem I have is that it's like 2.5 hours long. So yeah, I think that they should have trimmed down a little bit of,
You think?
But I mean, overall, it wasn't bad. And, I thought it was kind of fun. It's got like bad acting. The works that I love in movies. So, that's always a huge plus for me.
Are you telling me it's a 2.5 hour Nathan movie?
It is, actually.
Oh my Lord.
Because Joseph's seen it. He's the one that introduced me to it.
I knew the writer and director. His name's Robert Lasowski. Back in the 90s, it's a shot on video film, and it's basically just a love letter to the Scream saga and the I Know What You Did Last Summer films. This movie, it's bad. Let's not beat around the bush here, but it's kind of charming. They really give it their all, but the acting is so dreadful, and the movie is like entirely too long. It goes on for 2 hours and 30 minutes. And like Nathan said, when they get to the killer's reveal, his monologue, I actually timed it. His monologue is 9 minutes long, and it's so convoluted and so just preposterous. And it's like he has to explain every single little detail. And it's just, at this point, I'm just dying laughing. But no, for a shot-on-video film and for the effort they put into it, it's really quite enjoyable. It's really quite charming in its own kind of, haphazard way. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you're like a shot-on-video enthusiast. But, it's for a 2.5-hour runtime, it's not bad. I mean, it's certainly entertaining.
I don't think
One of my favorite things is that they have a guy that's the same age as like the teens in the movie, or the young adults, and he's supposed to be playing a grizzled old, police detective.
Yeah, and his plot in that film is so it's just useless. I mean, it follows this guy. He's like this cop, and it follows him around for like what seems like an hour, and it's like it goes nowhere. It's like it's totally filling up the runtime.
I'm imagining, Erik, like me, you've not seen this movie.
No, I can't remember what it's called.
Writer's block.
Writer's block. Okay.
I think the runtime aside, Erik, I think you would get a giggle out of this because it's essentially a Nathan movie stretched out to 2.5 hours long. So.
Well, yeah, and I like the idea of it being heavily dated for the 90s because the 90s have dated quite badly.
The characters in the movie work in a video store. So there's a lot of scenes in the video store, and that was very, nostalgic.
Cool. Excellent. Well,
I like video stores.
Well, we all like video stores, Nathan, although unfortunately those kind of things don't exist anymore.
No, I know.
Anyway, Nathan, thank you. Is there anything else you want to say before I invoke the rhubarb?
No, those were the two, and thank you.
Erik, how about you?
Unbelievably, I have recently seen. So, I got sent the new Arrow Special Edition of Tremors from my brother. Kindly gave it to me as a gift. And it is amazing. The film looks pristine, but the thing is, it's packed with extras, and there's a newly commissioned 30-minute documentary on the film there, which includes contributions from Kevin Bacon and many others, and it was actually produced by Universal. And it's bang up to date because there are references to COVID in the documentary, so that's unusual for them to commission that. And there's loads of interviews, posters, booklets, commentary tracks, great commentary from a guy called Jonathan Melville, a Scottish author who wrote a book called Seeking Perfection: The Unofficial Guide to Tremors. And if you're a fan of the movie, and I know some of us on the podcast are, it's well worth a look. It's from 1990, so I'm guessing it might appear on one of our top threes of that year. One of us. So yeah, when we've talked about Tremors before, it's a great movie, I love it, but I'd never seen any of the sequels before, so prompted by getting the special edition of the first movie, I sought out the sequels. I managed to pick up a box set of all of the sequels on DVD, if you remember DVDs. So I watched Tremors 2 Aftershocks, which was filmed in 1994, and it turned out so well. It was made for the straight-to-video market, but it turned out so well that they temporarily toyed with the idea of releasing it theatrically, but they didn't in the end, so it didn't come out till 96. But what it does in this one is that instead of the underground worm creatures, they kind of evolved into overground two-legged monsters, and it's all done with with a lot of CGI, and CGI in 1994 has not dated well in most movies, but in this one it's surprisingly effective, and the movie itself is good fun and much so incredibly watchable for what it is. I mean, a straight-to-video sequel to a theatrical movie. I was really impressed by how entertaining the film was, so I moved on then to Tremors 3, and it does more or less the same thing. It evolves the creatures one more step into what are known as ass blasters. So these are overground graboid creatures that are able to propel themselves in the air by doing a big gigantic fart, which is why they're called ass blasters. And so it's this level of comedy that I think divides.
That actually happens in Tremors 3.
Yeah, so this is what I think divides fans of the franchise, is that the comedy element and the ass blaster aspect of Tremors 3 seems to make people think it's veered too far away from its horror roots and too far into comedy. I thought it was quite entertaining. Now, I do have the mentality of an 11-year-old, so it kind of played well for me. And again, I thought this one was really quite entertaining. And the CGI in this one, now this was made in 2000 and released in 2001, and the CGI is really quite bad in this one. It's very dated looking, and it looks like, a PlayStation graphics in places. Not quite as bad as Birdemic, but still, it has, it's 20 years old, so it has dated. But the film itself is kind of fun. It brings back some of the cast members from the original and that were missing in the first sequel. And so I was really impressed with Tremors 2 and 3. I hear that the quality dips significantly from here on in. I haven't watched the rest of them yet. There's another 4, 5, 6, and 7, another 4 to go. So yeah, I'll wait and see. So you've obviously seen Tremors 2 and 3, have you, Joseph?
Yes, I absolutely love Tremors 2. I think it's not quite as good as the first, but it's almost as good as the first. It works because the effects are very, very well done for the budget, and I love Fred Ward, I love Michael Gross, the returning characters from the first film, and even the new guy played by Christopher Garten. I think he's kind of likable as well. It's just a lot of fun, them at that Mexican refinery, and they're kind of trapped, and they have to climb on buildings, and then the graboids they've evolved to where they can jump on top of each other to get to them on the roof. So there's a lot of fun in that. But it's a very good sequel. The third, it's more of the same. It's just lower budget. It's not quite as zippy, but it's still pretty fun. I don't remember the fourth one all that well at all. So
the fourth one is a prequel set in the Wild West, apparently. I think it does a kind of a Back to the Future 3 type thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Now the only other has anyone else seen? Justin, have you?
No, I've seen the original, but not. I don't think it's seen.
Are you interested in farting monsters that can propel themselves into the sky?
Well, I've known you for quite a few years.
How rude! How so rude!
You whore!
Okay, the only other one thing I watched, and it was a new movie. I think you may have mentioned this before, Justin. It's one called, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. You Should Have Left. Is that what it was called? With Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah, so he is a has-been rich banker who has been accused of murdering his wife, but was cleared by courts, and he's now married to a much younger actress played by Amanda Seyfried, and they decide to go for a holiday in the Welsh countryside into this really futuristic house, and lots of strange things start happening. And I thought it had moments that were really promising. Like, for instance, once they get to the house, sort of time and space begin to bend, and he finds rooms where there shouldn't be rooms, and he goes upstairs at one stage to turn off some lights, and when he comes back he finds that 5 hours have passed and he doesn't know why. But then all those kind of strands are never really dealt with in any way, and the film limps kind of to a pretty predictable conclusion. So this is a Blumhouse production, and it was scheduled for a theatrical release, I think, last summer, but because of COVID, it went straight to sort of streaming devices. I was watching it on Now TV as part of Sky Cinema, and it feels very like something that would have gone straight to streaming. I just can't imagine it as a theatrical release because it felt quite slight to me. Now, as I said, there are moments in it that were quite good and promising, but it kind of goes nowhere in the end. And now it is only 89 minutes, so I didn't feel like I wasted any time watching it. I thought the sort of sci-fi time-bending aspects of part of it were really interesting, but it's just a shame that they just led nowhere in the end. So I was kind of unimpressed, but not... it wasn't Axum, basically. So what were your thoughts, Justin?
I remember being sort of initially intrigued by the premise, and then it didn't have much of a payoff as far as I was concerned. The ending didn't really satisfy. It kind of felt it kind of meandered once because sometimes you get those films when it's quite a usual setup, isn't it, of someone trying to find out what's going on. There's something weird, and they're trying to work out why and it's usually something a bit like, I don't know, Sinister or something. You find out sort of go to that kind of slightly more shocking conclusion. And this, it just seemed to sort of stumble around. And I think it's from the director of A Stir of Echoes, wasn't it?
Yeah, David Coep. Yeah.
And I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that since that came out, but I remember that being better.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I wasn't. I don't. It's a one-time watch for me. I wasn't that thrilled with it, to be honest.
Yeah. Anyone else seen it?
No.
Okie dokie. Well, that is all my recently seen. It's nice to actually have some recently seen. Woo!
Excellent. Well, thank you, Erik. Joseph, how about you?
Yes, what's shocking is I have recently seen this week. Yeah, the only thing I've watched this week was about 7 or 8 episodes of Two Sentence Horror Stories, which is this anthology series. I tried to watch this once before, but I got distracted. But this time around, I was, really enveloped in the show, and I plan to finish out the rest of the episodes soon. I like this series because each segment is like 20 minutes or less. And it's all very popcorny. So what you get is essentially, bite-sized fun without having to invest too much of yourself into it. The stories, they use stock plots for their setups, and they usually end with a fantastical kind of twist on the formula. Some of them don't exactly earn their crazy endings, but a majority of them do. I especially like the social media kind of makeup tutorial segment from the first season, which has a whopper of a curveball. And again, because these are 20 minutes or less, there's no room for fluff. And each segment is kind of forced to get to the good stuff and, quickly. Overall, I'm really enjoying these, and they sort of harken back to anthology segments of the 70s and 80s with a kind of a high-tech twist. The first 2 seasons are streaming on Netflix, so if you haven't given it a glance, I would recommend it. It's a fun little time waster kind of anthology series. It's called 2-Sentence Horror Stories. Anyone seen it?
No, but I've seen it listed, and I didn't check it out because I thought it might literally be 2-sentence horror stories. So it would just be, sometimes you see those things that people have written like a 2-sentence horror story or a 4-sentence horror story, and I thought it'd be over in 20 seconds. So I hadn't checked it out.
Yeah, some of these are really creepy and really well done, and they're all, like I said, they're all just kind of fun. There's no. It doesn't kind of delve into that whole, that nouveau kind of, we're going to scream at each other type, characters. It's you enjoy, you like the characters, you enjoy the thrills because they come quick. And, it's just a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend it.
Cool. What about anyone else? Nathan, have you seen that?
I've seen some episodes, but it's been a while since I watched them. So, and I don't remember.
Okay, what
any
about
of
you?
them.
Okay, no worries. What about you, Erik?
Yeah, no, I've heard of this, and I just had a look there. It's not on Netflix over here, unfortunately. So, but I'm sure I've seen it somewhere. It wouldn't be airing on any TV station, would it?
Well, it's on the CW, and I think Netflix picked it up. So they get the first 2 seasons, and there's a 3rd season. I don't think it's on Netflix yet, but no, I would definitely recommend it, Erik. I think you would really get a kick out of some of these stories in here.
I will indeed. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Joseph. Anything else?
No, that's the only thing I had a chance to watch, and that's only because they were like 20 minutes or less, and I could binge like 5 or 6 of them at a time. So
cool. Okay, well, thank you. I've got a couple of things. It's going back to The Wrong Turn. I've been on a bit of a horror in the woods kind of kick at the moment, and the 2 sort of newish films that I've caught up. One kind of a big-ish recommend, and the other one the opposite. The one I'd recommend was Hunter x Hunter, which has I didn't realise it was Devon Sawa who was in I remember best from Final Destination, which of course was 20 odd years ago. And I didn't recognise him at all in this until I looked up to see who was in the movie. But it's a kind of story about a husband and wife and their kind of teenage daughter living out in the woods, and they survive by hunting. And a wolf is has come onto their area basically, and it kind of gains this kind of slightly mythological kind of kudos, or whatever, not the right word, treat it as if it's kind of like this kind of monster that's going to devour them. And without giving anything, I won't give anything away really, but it's just a whole play on who's the hunter and who's the hunter and who are the hunted. And it goes off in a different direction, and then goes into completely the last 5 minutes are kind of batshit crazy and very gory. But I thought it was really well done. It's kind of quite creepy, but also kind of satisfies as a kind of straight ahead kind of horror film as well. I thought it was that was pretty good. Has anyone seen it or heard of it?
No,
never heard of it.
Devon Sawa was also in that film with John Travolta, where John Travolta needs to do the poo.
The Fanatic.
That's the one.
The other one I saw, which was on the same, well, not the same lines at all, but similar thing, again, Cabin in the Woods. I saw a review of this in The Guardian. It came out in 2019, I think it was made. It's called Sator. And I couldn't give you spoilers for this, even if I tried, because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's essentially, again, a cabin in the woods with a man that seems to be hunting some unknown presence thing that has looks like basically like a sheep's skull with horns and long robes. It's kind of haunting the woods, kind of like a kind of goth Kate Bush, I kind of guess. But it makes no. It's one of those films that I don't know. We started to watch it, and it kind of tested my patience because I do love kind of weird films sometimes. I kind of really like The Lighthouse and, some newer movies that don't make a great deal of sense. But this was, it was unfathomable, even, in those kind of, in that kind of context. Everyone spoke as if they're in a David Lynch movie. And to be honest, as the older I get, the less patience I have for that kind of bullshit, basically. And
I'm going to get you more flack for this, but I'm not a big David Lynch fan at all, honestly.
Well, I like I do like some David Lynch, but I kind of when I watched it when I was younger, and everyone I knew watched it, and it felt like you were kind of looking into a private world, and everything kind of made, you didn't really know what it meant, but you thought it must make sense. And the older I get, and again, we may get some hate for this, but a lot of the things, I think David Lynch is a bit like Emperor's New Clothes. I think he's, maybe the joke's on us that a lot of it is just made up bullshit, doesn't mean anything.
That's exactly what I feel when I watch a David Lynch production, actually.
So, it's made great visuals and stuff like that, and I found the same with this. It's just everyone stands around and talks to each other in that kind of slightly like, am I in a dream? I'm just talking nonsense and I don't know what's going on, and you don't know what's going on. Let's just say some weird shit and see, and then let's go on to the next kind of cut to some abstract black and white thing with an old lady talking nonsense. It just goes on like that for 90 minutes and doesn't resolve itself, doesn't make any sense. And I kind of guess if I knew that going in, I might have enjoyed it more. But I think it was just after Hunter x Hunter, which actually had some kind of structure. It just felt like a bit of an art student's home movie, basically. So if you like that kind of thing, then watch it. But it didn't do much for me.
Yeah, it sounds like what was that? All the Color of Your Body's Tears, which is by that French directing duo, which was visually really impressive, and I saw it in the cinema, and it was visually and sound wise it was terrific, but it just meant it was structureless and pretentious.
Well, exactly. That's the thing with this. It doesn't, none of the characters do anything that makes any sense, which in itself, I think if you kind of knew you were watching something that was not meant to be a kind of a dream or whatever, then, but the way it's set up is this, it's, like a film like The Witch, although I'm not a huge fan of The Witch, the film from 2005, and that had a weirdness to it, but it has a structure and it kind of made some kind of sense that you could invest I think the biggest problem for me is films that are so abstract that you can't invest in the people in them.
I agree totally, yeah.
You can't identify with them or do anything, and they're just doing stuff, and you're just sitting there thinking, well, what's going on? So I know there are fans of that kind of movie, and I say, if it's something like The Lighthouse, I kind of really like that. I thought that was really well done. So I'm not like, saying I only watch movies that kind of really like, for want of a better term, meat and potatoes kind of straight down the line. But this one I just thought was a misfire because it wasn't really scary. It wasn't scary. It was creepy. It had creepy elements to it. But I had to watch Drop Dead Gorgeous and Valentine afterwards to get myself back on some kind of even keel, which is much more enjoyable.
You've seen Drop Dead Gorgeous?
Have I seen it? Yeah, I saw it years ago, but I watched it again last night.
What'd you think?
I loved it, yeah. I think it's
so much fun.
It's a lot of fun. I think it feels like he could have gone a little bit further into sort of John Waters territory. It kind of feels like it's holding back a little bit. But when you got Denise Richards dancing with Jesus Christ on the cross at that teen pageant, it does. I was reading about that, and they were saying how they crossed the line with some people that in the audience got up and left because they were so offended by it.
I bet.
Yeah, but because you couldn't make that movie today, could you? Probably.
I don't think so.
Not with that scene, anyway.
It's definitely different, but I love it.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a lot of fun. I didn't realize that the woman who wrote it was she played the kind of the female judge who doesn't say anything, and she was a teen pageant queen, and she really hated the director, and they didn't get on at all. But overall, it was like it's a lot of fun. And of course, Valentine's is. I wanted to see that again. I hadn't seen that. I saw that at the cinema in 2000 or 2001 when it came out. And I think I may have seen it once since, but that was an interesting misfire. There's some bits in it I really liked.
We have done that for the podcast, haven't we,
I
Valentine?
don't think we have we?
Yes, we have.
Oh, we have. Okay, well, there we go. So I haven't seen it since. Obviously, I just after 230 episodes.
I know.
But one that will certainly stick in our mind for many minutes to come must be The Deadly Intruder.
Okay, so I'm going to read the back of the Thorn EMI VHS box. And guys, please try not to laugh at this, but it says, an escape...
Sorry.
An escapee from a mental institution is on the prowl, leaving behind him a trail of victims. He will not stop until he captures the beautiful girl, Jessie, and subjects her to his own strange behavior. The peaceful summer community is now terrorized by an unknown butcher. The police furiously work to find this deranged killer. He continues to stalk and slay each innocent victim in his own gruesome style. This suspense thriller in the Hitchcock tradition sustains the cold chill that creeps slowly up your spine until the twisting plot reaches its shocking conclusion. The identity of the killer is revealed to the amazement and horror of everyone. But will another deadly intruder escape? And as I said, that's from the back of the Thorn EMI VHS from 1985. And, like I said, it was all I could do not to break into a fit of giggles reading it. The Deadly Intruder is a movie I first saw via Movie Gallery back in 92 or 93, right around the time.
What's Movie Gallery? Sorry.
It was a video
sorry.
chain. Yeah. It was right around the time they began to kind of expand out of their Alabama and Florida Panhandle home base into this nationwide chain. They were behind Blockbuster. Frankly, the story behind Movie Gallery is much more fascinating than The Deadly Intruder, but we're not talking about that today, so cue size. The Deadly Intruder was one of my weekly 5 for 5 rentals. I remember the striking box cover and that terribly exaggerated plot synopsis. It totally reeled me in. Watching the film back then, I remember being bored. Watching it again for the show, I felt the same reaction mostly, though I'll concede that as bad as it gets, there's a smattering of kind of WTF moments in the film that held my attention. The first being a flatulent dog scene inside of a police station. And I admired and even longed for those puke green appliances inside Jesse's house. Actually, despite the limited locales, the film is awash in this kind of drab, lifeless 1984 clothing and aesthetics that pleases the nostalgic 8-year-old in me. During the film, when Jesse is held hostage by the Drifter character, we know he's not really all that bad because he seems to have no concept of tying proper restraints. I mean, he'll just wrap a rope around Jesse's hands and then he falls asleep right in front of her. It allows her to escape more times than I've had hot dinners. And so what the film essentially settles into during its last 20 minutes is a back and forth hostage film. The slasher elements that comprise the first half of the film, they're not necessarily bad in so much that, like most of the film in general, we just can't see what's going on. I also enjoyed that ultra repetitive synth score that sounded kind of like a tone-deaf rendition of Joe Jackson's Steppin' Out. And during the exceptionally obvious reveal of the bad guy, the actor engages in this kind of lunatic fringe acting style reminiscent of a young Nathan Johnson via Old Federal Massacre 2. The movie is just terminally dull otherwise. I mean, it spends far too much time with this pointless Drifter character just to set up this rather uninspired and flashing neon sign twist ending. And I'm thinking they spent so much time trying to obfuscate the killer's identity, literally anyone would have been a shock other than who it turns out to be. Whether or not a cleaned up print would elevate the film from the mundane, I do not know. I suspect this may have been a transition film made by people from one line of work looking to get into the film industry. And I do have, some possible background on that, and that would explain the piss poor production values as it's riddled with, choppy editing, little to no lighting techniques involved, and more technical flubs in some of our earlier shows. Despite this, there's something oddly charming about the film. It's not good. I mean, it's not good at all, but it has a sort of mystique to it. I figured that may be from the limited background and kind of the wonderment of the eternal question, what were they thinking? All of that said, I can't really, in good conscience, recommend The Deadly Intruder as more than kind of this odd curiosity. But its bad movie moments, including Danny Bonaducci getting tossed into a television set, that may be enough of a selling point to the less discernible among us. So let's start there. Nathan, your thoughts on The Deadly Intruder, please.
I love The Deadly Intruder.
Oh, of course you did.
Yes.
I saw it when I was a kid, and I'll admit, as a kid, I probably thought the twist was a lot more clever than I feel it is as an adult. I think it's got some good death scenes in it. The couple who gets killed when their car breaks down, that was fun. The screwdriver death, that was fun. So I like, some of the death scenes, but I feel that one problem that it has is that when there's no death scenes going on, it kind of meanders a little bit.
Kind of.
But I know that that's probably what people would, think. I love the scene with Danny Bonaducci getting his head thrown through the TV. I actually thought that it's very interesting, scene because they were friends with this person, and it's like you told one joke and it's led to this. Talk about not being able to take a joke. That's what I think the purpose of this movie is. You've got to be able to take a joke, okay? Because
the joke's on us.
Do you guys think they used a body double in the bathtub sequence?
No, it was
That was
very artfully edited together to make it absolutely seamless.
Yeah, very seamless. So we need to spoil it because we have to talk about the ludicrousness of it all. But the killer turns out, you're supposed to believe it's the drifter that, has Jesse tied up and all this stuff. But really, he just wants conversation. What a great way to get it, by the way. The killer is Bob, who is Jesse's date, who after one date with her falls madly in love.
But he's so nice.
I know. Well, he's so nice until that joke.
Yeah, but Danny Bonaducci should have come to me for jokes. I know how to create jokes that spread happiness.
And it's interesting because no matter how many times they tell him it was a joke, I don't know. It's crazy that sets him off into a psychotic rage. But, he is an escapee from a mental asylum, so, I guess that's it. But one thing, I felt bad for the guy, the motorist who got stranded because, he shows up and, the drifter, ties him up and, mocks him and puts a saw blade up to his throat saying, oh, you thought you were going to be a hero and all this kind of stuff. And then at the end, he gets a chance to be a hero and then dies anyway. I think that he would have been better off just running away, instead of trying to go save Jesse, I would say.
That's kind of how I feel about this film, actually.
As a final girl, Jesse's okay. But I do feel that I prefer final girls have a little bit more fight in them. She seems to spend a lot of time, especially when they're battling, the killer and the drifter are battling at the end, just lying in the floor, crying very loudly.
She's not the only one, because when the killer attacks Danny Bonaducci, it takes his girlfriend or wife or whatever 10 seconds to make any kind of reaction at all. He picks Danny Bonaducci up, starts slinging him around the house, and 10 seconds go by before she even whimpers.
She was probably in shock. What is going on here? This is a friend. Joe, it would be like me, you coming over here and suddenly going nuts and trying to kill me and Wes.
And Wes was just sat there for 10 seconds.
Yeah, but could you kill Nathan by throwing him into a flat screen TV? I don't know if that would work in the modern day.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think the flat screen, it might
hurt, but I don't think it would kill you.
It's mostly plastic. Those old tube TVs are glass and lots of electronics inside that box.
So how would you kill Nathan if you had to, Joseph?
Why are you trying to get me to kill Nathan? What's going on here?
Because this was a twist. Erik is the killer.
Yes.
Oh, that is a twist.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I'm a big fan of it just because it's so silly and ridiculous. Totally a Nathan pick. I love it. So that's my tuppence, if you will.
Okay, I know you hadn't seen this, Eric, so what are your thoughts on The Deadly Intruder?
Yes, as you said, first time watch. I'm not sure from what I've looked on the internet. I don't think that ever got a release over here, so that explains why I've never seen it before. But yeah, when you described this film as your attempt to out Nathan, my heart sank. And then Justin's review was 1 star, and I was like, oh dear. And then most terrifyingly of all, Nathan said he loved it, and I was like, oh God. So when I sat down to watch it on Friday night, I was like, okay, I'll get this over with. I'll just sit here for 90 minutes and let this wash over me. So the first thing I was struck by was, okay, it's a VHS print, and we don't have to subject ourselves to that many VHS prints these days, thankfully, because, I don't know, I find myself spoiled in the DVD and Blu-ray age of watching decent, if not pristine, quality prints of movies. So watching old VHS ones I find kind of difficult, and like the opening couple of minutes of this are quite murky and dark, and you can't really see what's going on, and I was like, oh, it's going to be one of these movies. Thankfully though, the print, it does brighten up, and actually I forgot I was watching a VHS quality print after a while, so that was good. I enjoyed the first murder with that poor woman who all she wants to do is tidy up her kitchen, and she ends up having her head forced into the sink, but not before her dressing gown pops open and we can see that she's got porn star boobs. There's a scene. Is there a scene similar to that in? Is it Satan's Blade where somebody gets drowned in a kitchen sink?
I mean, in Class Reunion Massacre, somebody gets drowned in a sink.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. And then that scene that you were mentioning, Joseph, like it cuts to the police station, and there's 3 policemen just having a bit of banter, but the scene seems to revolve around this flatulent dog for no particular reason. The dog doesn't really feature in the story after that, or his flatulence, and it's just such a strange scene, and it seems to be setting up that, I think the character's name is Danny. It seems to be setting him up as maybe a hero, although he is the worst actor in the film, so I can see why they killed him off. But so he dies later in the film. So it just feels like very much a shoehorned in, and it's our brief glimpse of Stuart Whitman as kind of that marquee name they've put into the film as the sheriff. So when it gets to Jesse's house, what struck me was how uncinematic her dinner party is, because it's just the 4 of them sitting around having a normal, everyday pedestrian dinner party. The excitement is raised somewhat by the fact that John has brought a cake he made. Ooh. And they suggest maybe playing Yahtzee or Monopoly, and the others are like, oh, I can't be bothered. And it keeps going like this, and you're wondering, this is a real life depiction of a dinner party, in fairness, but it's not terribly cinematic. It's not really fun to watch. I did like the sort of wooden paneling on the interior of Jesse's house. I thought that was quite nice and gave it a nice rustic house in the country feel, but I probably shouldn't be focusing on that type of thing in the film. I love the fact that there is this fashion boutique, which I think, when I pause the screen, I think it's called Boobalina. Is the name of this fashion emporium, but it's located in a lay-by in the middle of nowhere. It's not exactly, a boutique on Oxford Street in London. It's just such a weird location to be putting up a clothes shop.
Yeah, other than the police station, that seems to be the only thing in this town.
I know, it's just, and it was this kind of thing, I think, that was kind of drawing me in. It's like, this town is a police station, it has a fashion boutique called Boobalina, and then it has Jesse's house where everyone hangs out. The introduction of the vagrant character, I thought, made the film drag slightly. As Nathan was saying, I think the filmmakers are making us, well, they're making us think that he's the killer all along, and but we learn a valuable lesson of not to judge a book by its cover with this character. Although I do disagree, Joseph. You said he's not terribly vicious, all he wants is conversation, but I think he does one of the cruelest things I've ever seen in a horror film, and that is once he's kidnapped Jessie, he offers her a Coke, but then quickly says, no, I'm going to have that, and he gives her a 7-Up instead. Who would do such a thing?
I would rather have a Dr. Pepper, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I've nothing against 7-Up, but it's against a Coke. It's a no-brainer. As Nathan was saying, I thought the murder scenes were surprisingly good. I mean, there's no particularly high-tech slasher effects makeup involved in them, but I thought the idea, like the Kathy having her head forced into the revving engine, reminded me of kind of a similar scene in Happy Birthday. Was it Happy Birthday to Me, where his face is pushed into the motorbike engine, and then the guy gets crushed underneath the car whilst he's working on it. The screwdriver in the eye. Again, you don't really see any gore, but I mean the invention is there. But for me, the film, my enjoyment of the film hinged on that, and you compared it to Friday the 13th: A New Beginning on how inept, I suppose, the mystery is in this film, because I'm not going to brag about this, guys, but even I guessed the twist in this film, and that's saying something. I could see that Bob, is it Bob's his name, would turn out to be the killer, and that's how blatant the mystery is in this film. Even I guessed it, but I kind of liked that. I liked that kind of silliness, and I love that scene where he can't take the joke. He's at Danny Bonaducci's house, and he can't take the joke, and he starts acting like a short-circuiting robot when he thinks that Jesse's seeing another man. It's like, does not compute.
Also, Eric, if you listen when the woman gets killed in her house and she's listening to the radio, they spoil it right then, because it's like escapee Robert Bob.
I know.
They give it away at the very beginning of the film.
I know. I noticed that after the fact. I was like, oh yeah, he didn't even change his name. So yeah, overall, I would say I was entertained to a certain degree by the film, which I wasn't expecting to happen at all, because my expectations were so incredibly low going into watching this film after what I'd read about it. I thought it delivered far more than I was expecting, and for that reason, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, if it came out in a special Blu-ray edition from Arrow or Vinegar Syndrome or something, I wouldn't purchase it. But I did not hate the film. And I think Justin's 1-star review is kind of harsh. I think there's definitely 2 stars in there for me. So that's my tuppence.
Okay, well, Justin, you did give this 1 star, so let's hear what you think about this film now.
I kind of guess I've mellowed to it to some degree, but I mean, it's not a good movie by any stretch. It's got some bits that I take slight exception with Erik saying that that guy, the police officer, the worst actor in the movie, because I think his girlfriend or his wife was even worse, stroke better than him. It was as Kathy, when they break down and she's in the car and she's going, can't we just get going? Where are we going? Where are we going? We're waiting for Jesse's waiting for us. Let's get going. Going. She's like on and on. She's kind of, so I should have taken a little sound clip of her, but she was my favourite thing in the movie. I like the fact that the killer was able to go to a dinner party and just pop out every 5 minutes and murder someone, and then come back in his suit.
Yeah, and what's the point? What is the point of like him sneaking away just to kill these like incidental characters? I mean, what is his motive here? I mean, he's got Jessie in the house. He's spending the night. Well, he's not spending the night with her. He's going to make out with her. What's the point of just hopping out to a car just to go kill someone? Well,
especially as that the rather rotund repairman who's mending a telephone wire. And he doesn't even know he's going to be there, does he? Because the killer thinks, I'm just going to go get a bottle of wine out of the car, and then goes out and then comes across this slightly portly repairman and kills him in the space of like a minute.
Yeah, and then later, I mean, I know the drifter unplugs the phone, but if you think about it later, when he can't get Jesse on the phone, it could have been his fault. Like, he killed the telephone repairman. And it's like, now you can't get through to Jesse. It's your fault, dumbass.
Well, also, I thought it was funny. I mean, I know, he was going around killing everyone. He escaped from a mental asylum. But he tries to get hot and heavy with Jesse, and she says, can we wait? And he says, yeah, why don't we go catch a movie tomorrow? And I'm thinking, it's not the kind of thing that Jason Voorhees would do, is it, really? Or any other psycho killer. Just go, yeah, okay, well, let's go catch a movie tomorrow. I think, again, when I kind of reviewed it, I probably was measuring it against other better slasher movies. But if you're in the right frame of mind, it's very flat. I think it feels longer than it actually is, because it's one of the films that, you have a film like, I don't know, any of the Friday the 13th sequels that tend to be, or Friday the 13th, for a lot of these movies happened over one night. Whereas this kind of meanders over several days, and the police thing is kind of strange, because I mean that kind of the thing that stuck with me was the idea that policeman has taken a dog turd and made coffee with it for his workmate, which it's, you know, I know it's just a throwaway line on the farting dog, but it's just kind of, wow, you know, I wonder what Stuart Whitman thought when he realised, you know, what he was in.
I know that whole plot point. Yeah, that whole plot point with flatulent dog was so beneath me. That kind of humour is just so infantile.
Oh,
I bet
yeah.
you loved it, Erik, but it was just kind of it just didn't really. I couldn't quite work out where they were going for it. It's probably trying to leaven, you know, sort of make. You know, with a bit of humour, but yeah, it was all very strange. I kind of again clocked the body double in the bath tub, and that woman must have the cleanest breasts in all of slasherdom, and God knows there's enough shower scenes in all of slasherdom. But that poor actress, I'm sure, because I always talk about. I mean, she went on to be in American Pie and all sorts of movies, didn't she? But whether or not she knew that they were going to do like stunt boobs on her, or she didn't know until they watched it. Because I mean, without getting into background, I know that apparently all the cast and crew got together to watch the movie, a premiere in West Hollywood. So, can you imagine if you were in a movie, Erik? Can you imagine if you were you were sort of like brushing your hair, and the next thing you saw inserts of you doing unmentionable things with a dildo?
I know. Can you imagine the horror and the shock?
Terrifying. I can't imagine it. You know, that'd be awful. But overall, it's okay. I mean, it just feels very flat. It feels like they've taken, the basic premise of the slasher movie, and then not actually done, done enough to sort of satisfy that whole Friday 13th, like random people wandering onto camera, in workman's drag kind of thing, and then just being murdered off just so you've got to kill every 15 minutes. But then it kind of jettisons that towards the end of the movie. And I agree, the Drifter character, apart from being kind of this red herring character, he doesn't really, it would have been possibly better if more of a cat and mouse sort of with the real killer. And slightly more almost like a 70s TV movie or a Brian Clemens movie where you had a bit more of that kind of thing going on, rather than this kind of red herring who just basically wants to, and again, what other horror movie or slasher movie do you have with the faux villain goes, rather than doing anything more carnal with his victim, he goes on a picnic with her?
Yeah,
it's very strange.
Sorry, I was just going to say, yeah, his only reason to be in the film is just so they could set up that twist ending.
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, it's okay. It's not a film, like Erik said, it's not a film that I would seek out to watch again. But if you want to see where the subgenre meandered to towards the mid-80s, then you could do worse. Maybe we will be doing worse than I've now seen what the next time's pick is.
That remains to be seen.
Yeah, well, that's my... I've got some background on it, but that's kind of my, my take on it this time.
Yeah, my reasoning here is because I don't think I've ever done like a full-on Nathan pick. So I figured, I'd try my hand at it, and it is very Nathan-y. But you might get some enjoyment out of this. It's not good, but there's like remnants of a good slasher film inside of this film.
Talking of inside things, did anyone see who the character Wayne was?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't, it's part of my background, but I couldn't spot him anywhere in the film.
He's one of the orderlies at the start who's chasing the escaped convict, and it's very dark, so you can't see who it is. But I'm not convinced. Now, I know he's listed, he's listed as Ben Dover, who is a famous UK porn star. Ben Dover is the actor's name listed in the credits, and IMDb insists it's the same guy who is the porn star from the UK, but I'm not sure if it doesn't quite add up for me.
I don't know, with all the body doubles and all the kind of the boobs hanging out, it might actually be him.
Well, I was reading up on Ben Dover's Wikipedia page, and around this era, the mid-80s, he was a glamour photographer. He was taking pictures of his wife for nudie mags in Surrey, Justin, and it just seems there's no mention of him going to the US at any stage on his biography, so I'm just wondering.
Well, I kind of, without going to hugely go into background, but I know that there certainly was a porno link to this movie with some people behind the camera. So
okay, maybe then. Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, he went on to do the greats, the British Butt Search and Only Fools and Arses. His most recent work, I think, was the Great British Bonk Off. So yeah, lots of classy stuff. But he was kind of he did a couple. Well, according to IMDb, he was doing a little bit of acting around this time. So it could well have been a favour to a friend. But yeah, well, I'm sure we'll get a bit more into that kind of background when we do it. So, I mean, Joseph, do you want to launch into stuff?
Yeah, I have a bit here. There's not a lot on this film, honestly, but let's see. The Deadly Intruder was released in the United States to VHS on the Thorn EMI label back in 1985, though some sources say 1988. I don't have the box anymore, but the actual box gives a motion picture copyright date of 1984, but there's nothing on the physical release indicating when it was released. That copy runs a taut 84 minutes, and if you can't get enough of the Deadly Intruder, there's a Greek cut floating around in Baby Jesus Land that runs a whopping 87 minutes, though the additional footage appears to be kind of incidental dialogue scenes, giving the Drifter character slightly more background. And this isn't so much background information as it is theory, but the production company behind the Deadly Intruder, which is Channel 1 Incorporated, they may have been involved in home satellite installations before moving into film production, with the Deadly Intruder possibly being their only credit. Again, this is from cherry picking what little bits of information I could gather, so don't quote me on this. Most people know that Danny Bonaducci had his brushes with the law as a former child star, so I won't go into all of that, but I did learn that he is an accomplished martial artist with black belts in Okinawan Chinan Ryu, Taekwondo, Tokyo Ryu, and Shorin Ryu. He won the 1980 and 1981 International Karate Championships and apparently had trained with Chuck Norris for 20 years. He was also a stunt coordinator on the film, which would make sense with all the physical fights kind of present in the film. People getting punched in the stomach and tossed around rooms and stuff. But Daniel Green, who plays Danny, you may recognize him, Nathan, as Roy Munson's dad in Kingpin.
Oh.
Sweeter Than Yoo-Hoo. He's gone on to have a pretty successful bit player career and has worked with the Farrelly brothers on quite a few other projects, Kingpin included. As we said, legendary porn star Ben Dover might have a role in this film as Wayne, though, like I said, I didn't spot him. Actually, if you watch the credits, it lists several actors playing characters who, as far as I could tell, do not appear in the film at all, including Suzanne Benoit as Sales Girl, and she was also the film's assistant director and location manager. And
is she not the one who's in the shop at the start and says she needs to leave early or something?
I don't know, because the cut I watched, I just didn't spot her anywhere, so maybe we watched a different cut. The one I watched was on YouTube, so maybe it's in that Greek cut that I didn't watch. But as an aside, she was also a location scout on The Hills Have Eyes 2, apparently. But with the missing characters, like I said, it leads me to believe that perhaps more was trimmed than what you see in either cut. I really don't know, but you can imagine the horror of an even longer cut of The Deadly Intruder existing out there somewhere. HBO's Guide to Movies on Video Cassette and Cable gave Deadly Intruder 1 star, calling it a mediocre horror film that suffers from lackluster acting and a tired plot. And that's all the background I was able to dig up on this atrocity.
I mean, isn't that a little harsh?
Maybe a little.
What kind of background have you got, Nathan, for us?
Just one thing.
Mm-hmm.
The film was released in Finland as Merhaja Sapu Oisin, and in West Germany as Der Todlicki Fein.
Todlicki?
Well, that's what it says. Todlish, maybe? Todlichi? I don't know.
Todlish or Todalische, or I don't know. I'm not German. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Nathan, for that. And Neil Poix. So, Erik, what about you?
Ooga booga.
Okay, the director is John McCauley, and from what IMDb says, his only other directorial credit was the 1976 Nature Runs Amok movie Rattlers, which I don't think I've seen, but it looks quite good. The writer and co-star Tony Krupi Kruppe, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. He plays the Drifter. He is also a co-producer in this film, but he's also in one of my favourite movies, and I'm sure this is a favourite of yours as well, Justin. Two of a Kind, featuring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John.
Never seen it, but I did see that he was in that.
Yeah. Danny Bonaduce, of course, was Danny Partridge in the Partridge Family, playing the younger brother of the swoon-tastic David Cassidy. Ooh, he was so dreamy. He also did, I didn't realize this, there was a spin-off animated series called The Partridge Family 2200 AD, and he also did voice work for that that was 1974, I believe. You said Molly Cheek went on to be in American Pie. Now, I'll probably get lynched for this, but I absolutely hate the American Pie films. I think they're incredibly awful. And I think Deadly Intruder is far superior in every way to any American Pie film I've ever had the misfortune to sit through. Yeah, but she went on to be in Drag Me to Hell, which is a film I really like. Stuart Whitman is the marquee name, as we said. He was Oscar nominated for his 1961 film The Mark. He had a successful acting career, but made a huge amount of money in real estate investment. And as of 1998, he had a personal fortune of over $100 million. So I'm assuming he wasn't broke in the 1980s, which makes you wonder why he would agree to appear in films like this. I don't know why. His genre credits include Night of the Lepus, Eaten Alive, the Toby Hooper film, which we mentioned recently on our top threes, Guyana Cult of the Damned, Demonoid, which we've covered, and Murder, She Wrote. He was in lots of episodes of Murder, She Wrote. Other Bend Over titles that I found that I quite liked: Bend Over 4, Beavers and Butt Cheeks, British Anal Invasion, Booty Duty, and School of Cock, which I thought was quite clever. He was also a drummer. He started off as a musician. He was a drummer for Edison Lighthouse and White Plains and various 70s and 80s rock bands, but it sort of petered out for him and he went into porn. Yeah, dirty man. He is the father of a quite famous British television actor called Tiger Drew Honey, who is famous for being in a sitcom called Outnumbered. So he has spawned some talent. If that's the right word to use for a porn star. The other thing I've just noticed as well is that one of the other minor credits on the film is the foreman I presume at the end of the film is played by Tommy Ramone, who is a member of the Ramones, or was a member of the Ramones. He passed away in 2014. So what he was doing in this, I have no idea.
I don't think that's the same guy. It can't be.
This is what it says on IMDb. IMDb is always right.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Well, it says Tommy Ramone, foreman. I click into Tommy Ramone, and it's the same one because it has all of his credits include soundtrack for Blitzkrieg Bop and I Want to Be Your Boyfriend and I Want to Be Sedated, and yeah, Sheena was a punk rocker. So there we go. That's all I have. Justin, over to you.
Yeah, well, I found some interesting stuff on this. I mean, just an aside, Stuart Whitman, I watched, I got Amazon Fire Stick, and there's some legal channels in there, like the ones with adverts, and there's one that's got the kind of old horror and sort of TV movies from the 70s. And there's one called The Woman Hunter, which had Stuart Whitman in it. It's set down in Acapulco from 1972. It's Brian Clemens, Women in Peril, and this one had Barbara Eden. I think she was in I Dream of Jeannie, and that was quite good fun, or very kind of very generic, but very sort of entertaining. 1972's kind of quasi giallo, but not really a giallo, but just more of a silly sort of, but great deal of fun sort of TV thriller movie. But the things I found out about this, some interesting facts. One was that Stuart Whitman wasn't the first choice for the role as sheriff. And to be honest, I mean, his role as sheriff is not really, I mean, what's he do really apart from wander and...
Yeah, he makes a few pronouncements like, we got to find this Robert Harvey character. Then he just disappears.
Well, he gives out about the flatulent dog.
Well, that's true. But do you know who was actually first choice for this? It was Christopher George.
Did he not die long before this was made?
No, because John McCauley, he died in November 1983, and John McCauley said he'd cast Christopher George as the role of the sheriff, but then he died before they could make it. So that kind of leads me to think that this was probably shot in late 1983, early 1984, which would kind of make sense because it definitely looks. It's shot in California, and that isn't a California summer, is it? It's definitely kind of winter time. So Christopher George was originally meant to be in it, but unfortunately it wasn't. I got most of this information from this book I mentioned when we did, which was the other film we did. It was one. It came from the 80s, which is a kind of interviews with filmmakers, the 80s filmmakers, and there's an interview with John Macaulay in that. It's a book that I definitely recommend if you want to sort of find out some more information on some of the lesser known 80s low budget horror movies. But he said that he got involved. He was originally a painter and decorator, and it sounds a little bit like this. Kind of sounds like a kind of story that was made up, but something may have changed over the years. But he said he was a painter and decorator, and he was doing some painting and decorating near the set of a nudie film. If you remember before the pornos, there was kind of like Nude on Mars or kind of things, kind of Doris Wishman style movies where people played volleyball, naked ladies bounce balls up and down. And he said that they got him involved because he knew how to load a film. And then that took his porn career off. So apparently he went on, worked on lots of porn movies. And he said that he had to walk out of Boogie Nights when he saw it because it reminded him so much of the 70s porn industry and how sleazy and everything it was. That's why that kind of porn sort of the kind of links. That's why I think Bend Over may have been in it, but I don't know. But he kind of obviously got the gig with Rattlers in 1976, and I think he said he tried to get films made, and he said the thing which I thought was quite interesting, which kind of obviously makes sense with these kind of movies. He said the reason why they used to kind of put people like Stuart Whitman and people like that into the movies, and we've seen them a lot with these kind of 70s, 80s horror movies, Holbrook, all these kind of people that are not in the movie for very long, is they said that they used to do set them up as an idea for a movie, then go to Cannes Film Festival. And he said that and if they had a name to attach to it, something that people would know, that people would money. And they said if they could pre-sell the film to enough countries, it would get made. And if you've ever, like I've used to have the old copies of Variety magazine, and there's all these amazing projects that never happened by directors like Wes Craven and people like that. Just these films never happened. Lucio Fulci, all these kind of films that for whatever reason didn't happen, probably because they didn't get the pre-sales and so they didn't go forward. But he used to do all these amazing pre-sales artwork for these films, and they just didn't get made. So, but this one did get made. And it was shot in and around LA over 10 days on a budget of $150,000, which is pretty tiny. He said that he had to bail Danny Bonaducci out of jail after a cocaine bust during filming. He said that when they screened it, he said there was actually a premiere in West Hollywood, and they streamed it. But he said the person who edited it cut the beginning and end off each scene, each sequence of film to cut the running time. So he said everyone, all the cast and crew were looking at him, and he said that the reason it was so choppy was they kind of cut off what he called the breathing room between the transitional scenes, like opening doors, people coming in, and it just kind of jumped around. But the funniest story I heard was there was an interview with Chris Holder, who plays the killer in this, and there was a few newspaper articles sort of saying, because he was in The Young and the Restless while he was making this, and he said this was kind of shot on weekends, so he's still able to do Young and the Restless. And he said that everyone got paid very little money, but they had good sandwiches, so he didn't mind too much. But he said the funniest thing was that when they were watching the kind of the thing, he said there's the scene after he kills Danny Bonaducci where he's snapping his head back and forward and he's looking psychotic. And he said originally the idea was that he was meant to be having flashbacks to all his past traumas about why he was a killer, and they didn't introduce those. It just made him look like he was kind of doing a bit like the new Jan Brady and the Brady Bunch movies. But he said he went when he was working on All My Children, another soap opera later on. He went into a video store, and The Deadly Intruder was playing on the TV in the video store, and he saw the poster prominently displayed, and he said he bought the poster from the shop. So he obviously was still had a soft spot for the movie. So, yeah, that's I think that's all I've got on the movie. So, yeah, Deadly Intruder. Well, I kind of guess. Well, first of all, should we find out what people thought about this, Joseph?
Sure. Out of 17 votes, wow, 36% of that paltry number enjoyed The Deadly Intruder. 59% were neutral. I'm assuming they haven't seen it. And 5% disliked the film. Our listener of the week is Ingo Dirkschneider, and he writes, "It's a neutral from me. The film's got its moments when it's tense and entertaining, but loses all that when it comes to the hostage situation. Turning it into a obviously low-budget, run-of-the-mill, not much of a slasher movie where you just wish for them to wrap it up for the surprise, in quotation marks, ending. Some inventive kills at the beginning, proof that fake boobs were indeed already a thing in the 80s, and a cracking, funky soundtrack that also would have worked for a porn film and probably did. But that's really it. I wasn't disappointed, but don't think I'll be eager to revisit this one anytime soon." You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find us on all good podcatchers like Apple, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you're willing and able, consider supporting the show on Patreon for as little as $1 per month, or purchase some cool swag from our Redbubble shop. Just search The Hysteria Continues and you'll find us. And our email address is thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we know what's coming next, don't we?
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Why did Jessie have to wear so much makeup? To cover up her moly cheek. Moly cheek. Because the actress's name is Molly Cheek. I don't think you understand the joke. What? Why is Justin like Bob in this movie? Because they're both intruder things in life. Intruder.
Can we stop this, please? Oh, my goodness.
Hey, I've got a joke.
Ooh.
What makes Bob more angry than anything in the world?
What does?
When there's not a Jesse on the phone.
Oh, that's actually quite good.
I like that one.
Because he was very angry when there wasn't a Jesse on the phone.
I know.
So angry that he threw one of the Partridge Family through a television.
I know. You would think that'd be like constructive dismissal, wouldn't you, for that kind of behaviour? So anyway, as we can see, that's why we're award-winning podcasters. No, we haven't. Have we won any awards?
No, we have. No, so stupid.
So anyway, I think at least it's fitting. I mean, I would only do it in context because obviously it would be a cheap trick otherwise, wouldn't it? But any film that has it makes jokes around farting dogs and dog poo in coffee cups. You know, I think it's all in context, isn't it? So, do we have any feedback?
Hey guys. Just finished listening to your latest Patreon episode, the Algonquin Roundtable discussion on the last, or should that be the first, 10 years of the podcast. And I have to say, this was the most enjoyable one yet. It was great to hear you all reminisce about the last decade, but even better to hear that you all feel the show is as strong as it's ever been and that there is no sign of it coming to an end. I have to say that my own worst moment of the podcast was hearing you say that Erik was thinking of quitting. And that one of my favorite moments was finding out that he changed his mind.
10 minutes later.
Yeah, it was a scary 10 minutes. As I and others have said before, the show just wouldn't be the same if any of you left. So here's hoping you'll be around for another 10 years and able to celebrate Justin's 90th birthday together.
Did you add that in?
No, it is. It's there. I'm looking at it here. It's there.
I also wanted to make a suggestion for one or more future episodes, and that was to discuss a particular subgenre of the slasher film rather than one film in particular. For example, dream-based slashers, music-themed slashers, desert slashers might be one for the Patreon feed once you've finished your decade-based run. Just a thought. As always, keep up the good work. Loving you long time, Simon.Logan.
Well, thank you, Simon. I'll forgive you for your crack.
Ooh.
So, what?
Justin, that's so racy, especially coming off of a movie where we saw butts.
Well, we saw a butt or two, didn't we?
Some more than a butt.
So, well, thank you anyway, Simon. I mean, who knows? I mean, we've got we've just done 1976, we're on 1977, and then we think it's probably going to go on to the 90s. I think is what we've decided. Is that right?
That was the general consensus, yes.
But well, I can guess that we're going to find out what another classy kind of movie we've got coming up. I think it's a Nathan pick, isn't it?
Yes, it is a Nathan pick. And I think you're all going to enjoy a trip to the forest.
It's another film I think I may have given quite a low mark to.
Actually, I'm about to look that up, Justin, because I want to know what kind of marks did you give to the forest?
What do you call Justin when he goes for a walk in the woods? Fruit of the forest.
Oh, Erik. Outrageous. So, well, hopefully we're looking forward to hearing what the forest was called in Germany.
Yeah, toad licking or something.
So, okay, right. Well, what are we playing out with, Joseph?
Well, I had mentioned the synth score in The Deadly Intruder sound like a poor man's Joe Jackson stepping out. So why not play the real thing? We're going to close with Joe Jackson Stepping Out from 1982.
Ooh,
okay.
Good choice.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues. And next time, let's go for a picnic in the woods with Nathan's pick of the forest. So, look forward to catching up with you next time. So, say goodbye to the good people.
Bye.
Arrivederci.
Bye.